We're live.
Okay, welcome everybody to the Endpoint podcast. Today I've got Adam and Pete. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves quickly?
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm one of the owners of Endpoint. I'm COO with Adam here.
Yeah, and I'm Adam. I'm the CEO, as Peter just said. Um, yeah, we've kind of been running the team together for the past, 2 years together, I guess, 2 years and a half or so.
And
Um,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, and I'm Queen. I'm a journalism writer for the team. Um, so today we're just going to be talking about like how the upstart of Endpoint, where it came from. Where did you guys get the idea to start an esports team?
I mean, I've been involved in esports for years and years. My first game I played competitive was like Your Tournament, way back in like 2000, 2001. And I recently ran a team called Infused, which some people may know. We had a lot of success in kind of like the mid to late 90s. Like we had a team represent us at the World Cyber Games in Seattle, for Gears of War and things like that. And then it got to like kind of like the end of the 90s, and it was like global economic depression, and marketing budgets were the first thing to go out the window. And so plus I was under pressure. Like I just graduated from uni, and I was under pressure from my family to get a real job. And so kind of at that point I sold my shares in Infused to the guy who was working on it with me at the time, and then kind of took a step back from the scene. And then I guess it got to 2004, 5. I realized that I was still watching esports. I was still watching a lot of esports, and I kind of felt that like in the UK, the scene hadn't really changed that much. It hadn't really matured as much as you would hope. Whereas globally, esports was booming, and we were seeing like the rise of Counter Strike. We were seeing majors get phenomenal viewership numbers and record attendance. Um,
Especially
and
in Europe as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then when Dignitas was sold out to the Philadelphia 76ers, I kind of thought, hang on a minute, right? There's a big gap in the market now, because Dignitas were like one of the only kind of um, core British esports organizations that were doing things right, and they've gone. Fnatic, I mean, I know they're headquartered in the UK and whatever, but I've never really classed them as a UK team. I mean, Sam, the owner's Australian, and I can't remember the last time they had a UK, like a British representation in terms of a
It's
team.
been
So
mostly Swedish for their Counter Strike team, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. So I kind of thought, well, do you know what? Like, I could probably give this another shot. Learn on, kind of improve on lessons learned from running Infused. I was in a position where, thankfully, financially and time, I was, I could be a lot more flexible and help get this off the ground. And so, yeah, in 2000, middle of 2006, I started Endpoint. I
16.
initially started. Sorry,
2016.
2016. Sorry, yeah, you're right. Initially, I started it with the guys that I had been involved with at Infused before I sold my shares. A guy called Nick Carpenter, and Tim Jolly, who is still involved with Endpoint now. But it got to a point where, because maybe my time flexibility and financial flexibility was greater than theirs, it just kind of became a bit, well, I'm going to try and run with this a bit faster than maybe Nick could keep up with at the time. And then I met Pete at Copenhagen Games, of all places. We kind of sat together over a pint or 20, and kind of were talking about, how we both really want to do something within esports in the UK, and events like Copenhagen Games and what have you. And we kind of figured, well, he wasn't happy where he was at that time in Imperial, and I certainly needed more help. And so we decided to join forces. And
Yeah, I think at the time I was actually with London Conspiracy. We had a female team that was at Copenhagen Games. We came second in that one, which was good. But yeah, it was a case of I get on really well with the London Conspiracy guys that were running. I was running it with. It was just a case of I wanted to put so much more time into it, and even finances as well. It was a mixture of the two, kind of. So we kind of mutually parted ways, and I met Adam, as I said, in Copenhagen, I think 3 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and we both have the exact same, philosophy, and we both wanted to put the same amount of time into it. We both had part-time jobs, so I play poker for a living. Adam's a software developer, so we could both put as much time as we wanted into it. It wasn't a case of one day, right? Oh, we've got a really important meeting. I can't get the time off work. It's not that. It's we're both self-employed. We can both do what we want with it, and that seemed the perfect setup. We both had the finances to um,
Mm.
fulfill our passion as well, and try and make it a full-time thing, which this year we've succeeded in.
And you started with Counter Strike, right?
Yeah, so Counter Strike's always been kind of our passion, I guess. I mean, for me mainly, I used to play at a decent level in Counter Strike Source, and it's always been my favorite game. So I still play it for fun now. And I've always wanted, and I always will want to have a top Counter Strike team. I think it's just a yeah, it's a passion. You gotta love it. You gotta we watch it. Me and Adam always watch our teams play, and I wouldn't want to do that in a game I don't like. The same with Rocket League. We've got Rocket League now. I haven't played much of Rocket League. I played bits of it, but when we were in G50 Elite Series with it, it was such a fun game to watch.
I think it's one of the most funny sports as a spectator sports. It's so fun to watch.
Exactly, and like as a noob to the game, you can watch it and understand what's going on, which is great.
It's easy, yeah, it's easy to understand. Like Counter Strike can be a bit complicated for somebody who's not attuned to the game. But
Yeah.
yeah, Rocket League is as easy as there's a ball and 2 goals. So why did you call the organization Endpoint? Where did that come from?
So Endpoint is a bit of a nod to the fact that I am a software developer and I mainly focus on developing apps and websites and things like that. Endpoint is a technical term for like I guess it's where you kind of receive data or push data to or whatever. And I don't know. It was just when we were kind of spitballing name ideas with the guys that, like I say, was previously involved with it in Fuse. I mean, we went through all sorts of names. It's one of the hardest things to do. I hate coming up with names for things.
Yeah.
And so one day I was just kind of looking through, and I said Endpoint, and we were like, and I mean, they didn't. I don't think they kind of got the technical connotation of it, but they were like, oh yeah, I quite like that as a name. And so we kind of just ran with it, and started making a brand around it. We had a guy called Sammy, who's again still works with us now. He helped put the kind of initial logo concept together and everything like that. And we went, you know what, guys, I think we've got this. Like, we'll stick with Endpoint. And yeah, it's just kind of from there. Really, that's as much as it is. I mean, we recently obviously underwent a rebrand, and the reasons for the rebrand were, we wanted to have a monocolor label. Like, we didn't want to kind of, it's a lot easier to use a single color logo in a number of different places. Secondly, we kind of wanted to move away from the whole crosshair implications that the logo had, because obviously we were looking to moving into Rocket League and other things at the time, and we didn't just want to be associated as like an FPS team. And so, but really, we never really considered changing the name Endpoint. It's kind of who we are now, even though it doesn't really mean that much to people. But it's what is a name? I mean, look at again. I go back to Dignitas, right? If you Google Dignitas, your first hit ain't going to be an esports team.
That's true.
Yeah,
It's unfortunate name.
Exactly. It's not. It's an unfortunate name, but fair play to them. They've stuck with it, and they will forever be known as Dignitas. Hopefully.
So you had no other sort of concepts for names?
None that stick out. In all honesty,
It's one of the hardest things, honestly. Like coming up with the name to start a business is probably the hardest thing you'll do. It's.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I started up Imperial with a friend as well. That's the first esports organization I worked with, and we were spitballing ideas for names for weeks, and we couldn't get one we were happy with. It's just such an impossible thing. And we ended up going with a name which was a name that was used 15 years ago with the same person I was working with. So it's not an easy thing to do, and sometimes it's just that thing that it might not sound right at first, but the more you say something, the more everyone sees it, the more you actually just come to know the name and feel like it's a good name.
I think that's the thing. Like, a lot of people will pick names because of like the fact that they're a known phrase or something like that. Like, oh, our team's called the Bomb. Like, everyone knows the Bomb, and it's got some certain connotation. But in actual reality, trying to get that name to stick in people's minds is actually a lot harder, because if you say the bomb to somebody, their first thought won't be an esports team. It'll be, an actual object, or it'll be something else. So having a name that actually isn't maybe that well known and is a bit random. I mean, you look at most of the major tech companies, Google, Spotify, like people like that. Their namings don't really mean anything, but you will forever know who they are. And yeah, I guess Endpoint just kind of stuck, and we were like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's run with it.
Okay. So, it's been a hard journey. Have you ever wanted to just give up on esports?
Yeah, I
How
think,
many times?
All right, say no more. That laugh was enough.
Yeah, I mean, we have, like, I mean, me and Pete, there's no denying it. I mean, Pete have kind of sunk a lot of time and money into this over the past few years, and there has been times where, we've seen the amount that we've got to chip in for that month to kind of, meet bills. And I mean, yeah, we've come very close.
I mean, it's something we never do at Endpoint, is we'll never promise something we can't, succeed or deliver on. I think a lot of organisations do that wrong. A lot of organisations will promise you the world and think, "Oh, crap, nice! I'm picking up this team in a month or two's time. I'll have a sponsor which covers it." Great. The reality is you won't, and you have to make sure you budget properly. And I think there's been times where we've gone it's probably like a year and a bit ago now. I remember me and Adam talking in November, December time, thinking, look at these costs. I mean, come January, February, March, can we even afford it anymore? Like, this is us looking like 5 months in advance. It's not us looking, the next week, because we would have budgeted for that. It's fine. But if you're looking 4 or 5 months in advance, we've thought to each other, this is getting stupid. You might lose a sponsor, and how can you afford it anymore? So we've definitely been close to wanting to give up, I guess, and somehow we haven't. I guess somehow we just kept finding a way to keep pushing on, I guess. But
sponsors are integral to keeping an organisation like this active.
For sure, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
And I still don't think we're in a place where we have enough sponsors or anything, and there's something we're very much looking to grow on. As I'm sure pretty much any organisation is. I think in a business plan, you almost for esports, your outgoings have to be probably 50% covered at least by sponsorships, which is hard to do.
Yeah. All right, so you're picking up new teams all the time. What's the most important thing for you when choosing a new team?
I've always been under one of the things that we've tried to do at Endpoint is, like, if you're gonna do something, do it to the best of your ability, and be represented well. We've never really been interested in terms of limping into a game just to be part of that game. So, for example, I'll use Rainbow Six Siege as an example. We've had a lot of teams apply to be Rainbow Six Siege teams, but there are a lot of UK teams in Siege that are doing really well. You look at M&M and you look at other teams around them, and it's kind of, well, we don't just kind of want to barge in and spend a load of money on a game like that to try and
Just
be
to
at the
be
top of the
there.
scene. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
nor would we want to kind of limp in and kind of be in the bottom half of a prem table, for example. Like, we always want to be at the top of UK domestic competition, and that's really why with the Rainbow Six Siege example, we decided to pick up a female team, because it keeps us involved with the Siege community, but it also does something else that we're really passionate about, and that's kind of being more inclusive as an organization and pushing female representation in games. And the girls have been a great bunch coming on board. They did really well in the CCSW league last season, and we hope that there'll be more competitions for them to take part in. And so, with any game that comes up, really, it's about, can we establish ourselves as the best team in the UK in that game, and can we afford to?
Right.
Can we? Is this a game that's going to bring us the accolades that we want? Is it going to bring us the exposure that we want? And is it going to do it for a good cost?
And I think the other point is, the people that are involved in that team, are they professional enough? Are they do they represent themselves well enough that they can? Because at the end of the day, they're the face of your brand. Is your teams. So the face of your brand has to represent themselves well. A good example would be So we get, hundreds of emails a month or week, whatever, of teams trying to say, "I'll pick us up," whatever. And a good example is if someone sends a nice deck to you with, nice laid out what their stats are, what their Twitters are, what their socials are, what their achievements are, what their, nice deck which looks pretty, someone does that, you instantly think, okay, they're going to represent you well. If someone just sends an email saying, "Are you interested in Rainbow Six?" Well, we're not going to get a response. And like, even the issue also is if people send you emails, it doesn't really quite work like that. I would say with the teams we've got now, for example, our Counter Strike team, our Rocket League team, our Battalion team, um, even our Quake player, not one of those people emailed us. We went to them, and that's the issue. A lot of people don't understand is that yes, it's good to email people and get your name out there, but generally, if we're looking to get into a game, we'll have that in our business plan which games we want to get into.
Yeah.
We are going to scout the talent ourselves and go and find that team and contact them. I think the Rainbow Six girls did actually contact us, which is great, and occasionally it does work in that sense. But otherwise, generally, I reckon 80-90% of the time we'll pick up a team because we've scouted them, and not the other way around. So a lot of people don't understand that, and I guess that can be an issue. But I mean, another thing is obviously we get a lot of people, even singular people, going, right, I would like to be a part of your Rainbow Six roster, or I would like to join you, join your Counter Strike team, or can you build an academy around me, or whatever. Again, we're going to pick up a team that's established. We don't want to pick up 5 random people and put them together. We've tried that before. Be honest, we've tried that before a few times, and it doesn't work. Um, Picking up a team that's already put the hard work in, or putting the hard work in, will go along. It goes a long way in terms of us thinking it's going to be stable for the future.
Well, like sometimes you can't just pick. Sometimes you need to replace one player, or you need to get two, Counter Strike players.
Of
Like,
course,
what's the
yeah.
most important thing in looking for someone like that?
I'll be completely honest. Let's say we need a fifth in our Counter Strike team.
Sure.
They know everyone in the scene. It's not going to be someone coming to us. They're professional players. They know the whole professional scene. They're going to scout the players themselves. We scout a little bit, and we say this person's available, this person's available, and we might talk to them before just to see budgetary wise if it's even available for us. But generally, the players will come to us with names of people they like to play with, or they think look good on in professional matches, or they've heard good things about. Um, there are so many people in the scene which we've heard bad things about. So sometimes the players will come to us with a list of players saying, "Can you look into these players or something?" And we might go, "This person no, this person no, because we don't want to work with them. This person sure we'll look into it. This person will look into it." And that's again, people don't realize what social media does. For example, but there's a list of people in my head that I won't work with because of horrible stuff I've seen them say that is either racist or you know just bullying
So,
or
so
whatever.
that
So
team
that
synergy is important.
yes, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
and I said so. Generally, for people getting picked up, just get yourself known in the scene because if you get yourself known in the scene, you get a good reputation, and you start growing yourself. You'll get recognised by the people, but in the teams and the owners as well. But it's important for you to not screw your career up early as well.
Well, there you go. It's who you know. So what would you say defines Endpoint, especially for 2020? Like, are there any goals that you're attempting to hit in this year, especially with the new rebrand underway as well?
There's a number of things that we're working on. There's a lot in the pipeline for 2020. We've been at, I guess, in the run up to 2020, me and Pete were both very excited about a number of things that we were announcing. We were kind of counting down the days to the new year. We had the rebrand, obviously, first and foremost. We had a major partnership with CEX announced. We had the Rocket League team that we picked up. And so, really, 2020, we're focusing on building on that.
Mm.
We're really happy with the teams and the people that we've got around us now. We obviously hired a full-time social media manager recently as well, and so it's really from a business development point of view, it's about continuing to build an infrastructure around what we have already. We want to make it so that we can support the teams that we have, give them the facilities that they need to practice, give them the right support staff around them to really kind of nurture their game and keep them rolling forward. We have things in the pipeline that I perhaps won't go into too much detail about here, but it's shaping up to be a real exciting year for us, and we hope to be able to reveal the plans in more detail
I think one thing we can say, and you can take of this what you will. Endpoint has always been about infrastructure, and it's always been about a player looking up to Endpoint and thinking, I can achieve my best there. And that's what our plans are for 2020 is building infrastructure around Endpoint, be it staff or more. And yeah, as Adam said, we've got a good team going now. I think it's important that we give the players the best opportunity to succeed, but if they don't succeed, the Endpoint still succeeds, and that's the tricky part. And you do that through good content. You do that through a number of business decisions. But yeah, that's the main goals for 2020.
And also just winning in general.
Yeah, but that's some stuff. Some that's out your hands. Is
Yeah, sure, of course. So earlier you mentioned that the UK esports scene was quite immature. Why do you think it's taking longer to develop than other regions?
I've asked this question myself a number of times. Because generally speaking, the UK, there's no denying it. Like, we are behind in certain ways, certainly from like Scandinavian countries and North America and things like that. And for me, I think there's probably a few reasons. One of them, I think, is probably cultural. As a nation, we're a very kind of traditional sports focus. We're a footballing nation, and I think that we've been kind of slow to be a bit more inclusive. I mean, some will argue that lately we've actually taken a backward step, but it's the case of I think we're perhaps a bit slow behind the curve, I think, in accepting esports for what it is. I think the majority of UK public, if you spoke to them about esports, they'd just assume it's a bunch of overweight spotty people sat on chairs playing World of Warcraft or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of South Park image of it. But I think it's getting there. We don't really have the government recognition that other countries have. I mean, you compare us to, the obvious comparison is Denmark, right? Like, Denmark have Astralis, #1 team in the world. And the reason why Denmark have got so many good Counter-Strike teams is because years ago, when we're talking mid-2000s, the government recognized that esports was a thing, and they would give you localized government grants to start up esports companies. If you wanted to be the I think it was Roskilde Ravens or whatever kind of localized teams, they would give you grants in a building and everything like that to operate out of. I mean, there was a load of press just before Christmas about the Danish Prime Minister playing Counter-Strike with Astralis and stuff like that. Here, you go and talk to anyone in the government about well, not everybody. Some of them are a bit wiser to it than others, but you talk to the majority of the government, and they don't really understand esports for what it is. And they're, I guess, a bit naive and oblivious to the size of it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of facets as to why we're a bit behind, but we continuously are trying to bang that drum and get it there to a point where we can be a big esports nation again, because it's not always been that way. When esports first started, we were a very powerful esports nation. We had some of the best teams, some of the best players, and arguably we still have the players. The problem is that because the infrastructure isn't there in the UK, most of the best players end up going to North America or to European
I think the issue with
teams.
that though is also we used to be very good back in Source 1.6. We were okay. And a lot of that's down to money. I think back then people didn't expect to be paid for what they do. They don't expect to have everything paid for them, and so when it didn't come down to money, it came down to skill and who loves the game, and that was the UK was very high up in that. Nowadays, everyone expects everything to be paid for you, so it's kind of, is that money there? Only in a couple of places it is, and the infrastructure isn't there in general. And as Adam said about visas and stuff, I mean, we tried to get the best talent we could at the time. We got Impulse and AVN in from Serbia, who are great players, and we had to let them go because we couldn't get visas for them because the government was behind. There wasn't an esports body to allow us to get recognition for that. That's the issue with UK sports. I think it's generally down to the cost of living is high, and so people expect more money. But I think it can be down to an ego thing as well. But that's general culture. I think. Yeah.
So why does it work so well in places like Korea and Scandinavia?
Well, another thing actually in Scandinavia, I'll answer, sorry, is, I mean, Adam said about the whole esports recognition in Denmark is great, but another thing that actually, when it comes down to monetary value, Denmark is super expensive. But if you're a student in Denmark, you get paid to go to study. In the UK, you have to pay, or it's kind of like the other way around. And I think in Denmark, you almost get a full-time wage pretty much for just going to study, which means you can study, you don't have to worry about money, and then you can game as much as you want because you don't have to worry about money on the side. So that is why a lot of young talent is coming out of Denmark, in my opinion, as well, is because they never have to worry about money really until they get out of education. And at that stage, they should be either a professional player or they need to go into their own, job. So I think that's a big part of it in Scandinavia. But
Okay. So you've recently picked up a Rocket League team. We've had a few new games over the years, but are there any upcoming games that you guys want to explore, get into early?
We, yeah, I mean, we always keep our ear on the ground in terms of opportunities coming up. A great example of that is with Battalion. We won the majority of titles in Battalion last year with one lineup or another. The guys that we have at the moment, they're still kind of like the world's #1 battalion team, but unfortunately, for one reason or another, that game's kind of like died down in terms of the community behind it, and certainly the esports support and events behind it. But we have a great bunch of guys there that are really talented at FPS games and are great. They're really good friends and have a great synergy together. And so they're kind of sat there. I mean, I guess they're sat there waiting for Project A, right? It's we're kind of always looking at what the next title may be to get into. Project A right now is looking exciting. I think a lot of people have seen the kind of hype that it's generating, and some people have tried it and given their feedback on social media and whatever. And so yeah, we're looking to that, but ultimately it's just opportunities like that we can get into. We're not kind of scared to explore new titles, and we're always open to it. It's just, does it make sense for us at the time? I think it's interesting to see where mobile esports is going to go. I think there's been a lot of events for that, and I think that that's an area that could grow in future, and it's certainly one that we're keeping an eye on. So yeah, we're not ruling out getting into any titles, but right now we don't really have a finger on the pulse of any specific one.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment we've just picked up a load of teams, so as we said earlier, or Adam said earlier, we don't want to get into a game half-assed. So we've got into these games. We now need to show the content, show the what we want to do with those games, and it doesn't mean we need necessarily. A lot of people think, oh, we need to pick more teams up until we have a team in every game. We don't want to stretch ourselves too thin. We want to make sure that the teams we have, they're treated as family, and they're like they're and we can actually get what we want out of them in terms of content and growing their brands as well as growing our brands. Games, as Adam said, Project A looks exciting. I think there are issues with that in terms of if it's Riot and doing franchised. If they do, then it'll probably say bye to us. And maybe we look at a more content creation side of things for that game. Diabolical, what it was called? Sounds quite good. Looks quite good.
I don't know it.
It looks like a decent game. But yes, that's
Sports.
Wii Sports. Oh, Wii Sports. No, I don't think we're that
Hey,
list, but
potential game. I'm just putting it out there. Okay, so let's go back to more recent times. DreamHack coming up. You're practicing for it. How's it going?
Oh yeah, we played our first game yesterday. The practice for it went pretty well. The guys have been working super hard, which is really nice to see. Really nice to see. The effort they put in is, we can't fault it, which is can be hard to say for UK teams we've had in the past. There are teams that have put the effort in, but there are definitely teams that haven't as well. But these guys really are, and they're going for it. And we did a week-long boot camp before DreamHack, which went well. They played a lot of qualifiers though. They had a lot of officials to play, which is not a bad thing, but at the same time, if you really need to get your server work down, then it can be an issue. Unfortunately, the first game didn't go very well. They just didn't play their own game. You could tell they were maybe it was the occasion, maybe it was I'm not sure. But they lost a few fairly badly, and I think there was key points in that game where they'll be kicking themselves. They got ecoed early on. They got ecoed early on, and they lost a 2v5, which they should never lose. And it's just they know that we're not gonna. it's not us telling them something they don't know. They last night they went through a demo round by rounds, picked out all the mistakes, and then they started doing anti-strat for Forza, which is pretty standard. And they're ready for the game tonight. Best of three, they get more of a. Luckily, it's not just two best of ones and you're done. It's the best of three. You've got a good chance to show themselves, and hopefully they do.
Oh, best of luck to them then.
Yeah, I think DreamHack at the moment with their performance yesterday, a lot of it does come down to experience and confidence. It was their first game together on a stage like that. Hopefully, and I mean Furia, they're a great team. We saw how they dismantled North after they beat us, and they're obviously there. They mean business. So fingers crossed that we can put in a better performance against Forza later today, and I'm fairly confident that we will do.
Yeah, so am I. And I think the first thing they said just straight away is they played scared, and you could see it. They play scared. I don't know why, and again, yeah, it's just down to the moment, I guess. But they've been working hard for it. Best of three hopefully will give them more time to really settle in and give it a proper go because they've been working super hard. I mean, Forza were 13 in the world, so it's a stupidly hard match. Forza one of the favourites as well, but we'll see.
Okay. So we had a Rocket League team a long time ago. Why have you gone back to Rocket League?
Because of the game, like in general, like I find that the Rocket League scene is really vibrant and really engaging. The game is, anyone can watch Rocket League, like we said earlier, and understand what's going on. I personally love it. I mean, well, I hate it sometimes as a team owner, Rocket League, because it's one of these games where anything can happen at the flip of a coin. I mean, I remember the previous team that we had. I'm pretty sure it was in an RLCS qualifiers or something like that. It was game 5 and a best of 5, and we were 3-2 up with 10 seconds left on the clock, and yet we somehow managed to lose the game and didn't make it. And so, as an owner, it's a real nail biting game to watch, but it's fun and exciting, and the audience for it are great. We know from when we were in G-Finity Elite Series with a Rocket League team that they were the fans that were kind of engaging the players. They were buying merchandise. They were, really getting behind the team. And unfortunately, I think that's something that we don't see in other games in the UK. Particularly like Counter-Strike. There isn't really a domestic fan base for other UK Counter-Strike teams within the UK. We're working hard to do a lot more in terms of engaging the more casual players and the more casual Counter-Strike fans, if you like. But ultimately, a lot of the kind of casual esports fans in the UK are supporting Astralis or FaZe or all these kind of tier 1 Counter-Strike teams. So it's going to be harder to kind of get their attention whilst we're not at that at that level. Whereas with Rocket League, we kind of saw an opportunity to get in RLCS, which is the highest level of Rocket League around the world, and we wanted to take it. And so far, we're really glad that we did. The team that we've got are great. They're a good bunch of guys, really kind of passionate about the game, and they've not had the easiest start to the season. They played Vitality, who have previous champions and second at the World Championships last time round. They then played Barcelona, again a really strong team. But there are no easy games in RLCS, and I think that they've won a lot of plaudits for their play style. It's kind of it's a very aggressive play style, and I think people are starting to appreciate it. And
We've got Monaco tomorrow, right?
yeah, they play AS Monaco tomorrow, who also came up from RLRS last season with us. But they were a bit of a bogey team for us last season. I think they were the only team to kind of beat us, kind of both legs of the league last season. And so it's going to be a real interesting watch. But yeah, it's a great game, Rocket League, and it's also an easier game to sell to sponsors, partners, whoever, general public. You describe it as football with cars, and they're like, okay, yeah, I get the concept of it. And there's no kind of tiptoeing on a tightrope saying, oh, it's terrorists versus counter-terrorists. You walk into some boardrooms and say that, they'll just recline in horror and go, nah, not touching it.
Yeah.
But with but with Rocket League, it's a much easier conversation for sure.
I mean, it's a younger demographic as well. I mean, it's a younger demographic in general for esports, but for Rocket League, it's you're talking there's a lot more 12, 13, 14-year-old fans as well, which is good. It's good and bad in some ways, I guess. But I think the Counter Strike, just touching back on why the fan base isn't there. I think the fan base is there, but as I say, I think we need to get a team to tier 1 or tier 2 to top 20 in the world,
Yeah.
and then I think you'll start seeing a lot of the UK fans really getting behind the team. I feel like at the moment, a lot of people in the UK scene think that they should be playing on Endpoint, for example, and there's not the biggest of gaps between a lot of people's levels, like and the top of the UK scene, and a lot of people think, why they got the chance, I should be on this team, and they're not fans. I would say a lot of people. I would say a lot of people potentially are jealous, I guess, or they should be, or they're aspiring to be an Endpoint, which is a good thing, but they're more aspiring to be instead of like fans. And that's why I think they need to have a team that's really at the top, where there's such a gap that people become fans, because like that's amazing. These guys are awesome, and they're really pushing it on a global stage, and that's when you start getting the real fans in the UK. And I think that's where we want to be. As simple as, and hopefully we'll get there. But
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's everything I had. Is there anything you guys want to talk about on the tail end of this?
I don't think so. I think one of the other things that we're trying to do this year is grow. Is really focus on our fans and how we interact with fans. Like I say, we're working on a couple of things in the background in terms of how we can reward fans who are engaging with us and things like that, because it is really important for us to do that. We're also trying to grow our local fan base. I mean, it's no secret that we're based in Sheffield, UK at the moment. We held a viewing party last night for DreamHack Anaheim in Sheffield, and we kind of want to give people the opportunity to come and cheer for us in person. It's probably not something that will isolate to Sheffield only, because we do want to be up and down the country, but certainly as a base, it made sense that that's the first place we start. But yeah, so it's really important to us that we do a better job at that, because I don't think a lot of teams are at the moment.
Yeah, and hopefully tonight, second, the lower bracket of the groups for DreamHack Open. Hopefully we can get some people behind us. Hopefully we can actually try and see if we can stop some of this UKCS meme, and we'll do it, like perform on a big stage. And again tomorrow, our Rocket League team is majority UK. We've got or UK and Ireland, and I think hopefully we can show up against AS Monaco and get a win on the board. That'd be good.
How would you rate their start in the RSCS season?
Well, I mean, we've gone 0-2, which is unfortunate. I think the game against Vitality could have gone either way. Every game was within a goal, pretty much. The game against Barcelona, we had such a close game 1. We lost in overtime 4-3. And then I think, games 2 and 3 just kind of got away from us completely. Well, game 3 was quite close, but generally got away from us. And I think it was too much of an uphill struggle then. So I think we just need a better start, really. Winning the first game or whatever. And stop coming from behind, basically. But I think we have a good chance going forwards. We've played 2 of the hardest teams in the league. I think that, as Adam said, there's no easy teams, but I think that we'll do fine this season if we keep our heads. And the guys seem to be keeping their heads at the moment, so they're great.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, for these podcasts in general, we want to do more of them. This is podcast 1, as it says on the title. Feel free to put suggestions on any podcasts you want. I think hopefully we'll get some with Avak, a Quake player. Maybe some Rainbow Six girls. We'll get one. Battalion guys. Maybe we'll get some. Try and do one of the industry. Like people who work in the industry. And there's a number of things we want to do. So yeah, hopefully it's a good start. But we'll put this on YouTube as well. So if you missed some of the VOD or all of the VOD or whatever.
Well, big thank you to our sponsors. Big thank you to Adam. Big thank you to Pete.